In this video, I want to focus on the process involved in making a batch of bowls. Making a small batch rather than seeing each individual creation to completion allows us to create our pieces in a more efficient manner. And whilst all these bowls are part of a batch, they all have individual characteristics and properties, as we'll see. Each step in the production of any sort of manufacturing is known as a process. In this batch, I try to accomplish each process for all the bowls at the same time. The first process is sourcing the wood. For me, this involves fossicking around in a couple of locations, but mainly the back shed where I have a stash of saved logs and a bit of firewood rescued from last year's pile. It's not always apparent whether a log is going to be okay. This bit of Redgum might be okay. It's got a crack that goes down all the way there and probably goes all the way into it. Another little one here. But I reckon we might get a good bowl blank out of there. It doesn't go all the way through, and that's the most important thing. Sometimes they surprise you with the end product, and sometimes they're just not up to scratch. Having sourced all my timber, at this stage enough to make nearly a dozen bowls, I cut all the blanks at the same time. Some of the blanks don't make the grade, and this one just has too many cracks, so it's back to firewood for this piece.
Absolutely.
At this stage I cut all the bases roughly to shape and leave a tenon on so they can be reversed in the chuck. These bowls are going to be a series where I explore the same fundamental shape, which in this case is a partly closed form. With all the bases done, I can proceed to mount them in reverse for hollowing. Firstly, I complete the outside shape, creating the outer lip of the closed form. Then I can do the hollowing. After hollowing and smoothing with a scraper, I sand each interior down to 320 grit and usually finish all the interiors before moving on to complete the bases. In this particular series of bowls though, I'm going to create some individuality for some of the pieces and use some different embellishment techniques. This piece is an old rough piece of Redgum with some voids. I don't usually like producing pieces with voids, but since this block allowed me to keep most of the rim, I've made an exception. The colour of the timber is also exceptional. I scorched the rim of this bowl with a gas torch and proceeded to clean the burn with a wire brush. This process produces a wonderful texture which reminds me of the harsh, dry country in which this Redgum grows. I later cut a pile of beads on this rim, as you can see in the finished shots later on. Then I hollowed and finish sanded all the interiors of the other bowls. A piece of yellow gum also managed to find its way into this batch, and I scorched and textured the rim of that bowl too. Now it was time to attach the bowl jaws and complete the bases of each of the bowls. The bowl jaws have two radiuses on the buttons that allow you to get close to the radius of the bowl you are fixing. When in expansion mode, I always lock the jaws with the grub screw provided, as the jaws can contract with the spinning of the lathe to the point where the bowl comes loose. Some of the smaller bowls had to be held in compression mode. While completing the bases, I also indulged in some decorative techniques, including beading and scorch burning. The scorching doesn't get right into the base of the beads, so I used my ebonizing mixture to paint the beads and further blacken them. With this particular bowl, I thought I would not sand the base at all and just leave the tool marks as a coarse finish. I think it worked quite well, but others may have different thoughts. This piece of Redgum has some wonderful cracks, but is still structurally sound. The scorching and brushing rounds the edges of the cracks, leading to a nice, satisfying texture. Some of the smaller pieces I left undecorated and let the wood speak for itself. Some of the beads I just blackened with ebonizing liquid. Once all the bases were completed, it was time for finishing. One of the advantages of doing a batch is that you can do all the finishing at once, which involves less cleanup. The finish I'm using is Scandinavian oil that needs wiping to a dull luster. I'll talk about the features of each bowl as I'm finishing them. This piece is a very old bit of Redgum. It darkens with age and gets a bit crumbly. It's hard to get a good finish by sanding. So whilst I sanded the inside, I finished the outside with a rotary wire brush, which gave it a nice tactile texture. Some of our firewood gets delivered as mill ends, so some of the chunks have flat sides. On this occasion, the delivery contained an almost perfect bowl blank. Here's a picture of it when the wood was dumped in my drive. And this bowl is the final product. This is the bowl I didn't sand on the outside. I just left the tool marks as a finished texture. Again, this piece came from the firewood pile. This bowl comes from the log shown. I had to fill 3 largish cracks, but the result was worth it. This bit of yellow gum snuck in amongst the batch. It's a bit of crotch wood that I have had sitting around for over 25 years. It was some of the hardest wood I've ever turned. I scorched and ebonised the rim for contrast with the amazing figure in the wood. Sometimes very small grubs bore holes in the Redgum, which allows water to penetrate in and cause tannin stains deep inside the wood. This bowl shows some nice colour as a result of this. Another piece of old Redgum. The chocolate red contrasts nicely with the burnt texture underneath. This old wood makes beautiful pieces. Here's another one with a similar treatment. Another beetle affected piece and some small bowls from offcuts finish off the batch. I find it takes me nearly as long to make a small bowl as it does a large one. These little bowls make a great group photo. Here's the complete batch drying after their first coat. And after a second coat a day later, they all look a bit shinier.